to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Guns, self-defense, concealed carry. This is the Patriot Defense Podcast. From the war room in Idaho's high desert, here's your host, Todd Echols.
And we are back once again. It is Sunday afternoon, and we are tucked away in the war room somewhere in the high desert of southern Idaho. And joining me today is Eli.
Howdy up.
One of these episodes, I'm going to give you the opener, and I'm going to see if you memorized it yet. It took me about 3 months. It's not like I ever wrote it out, but I'd start to say the same thing, and then all of a sudden I would like forget, and I would like say the wrong word or something, and the guys would look at me like, "You messed that up." Like, yeah, I know I did, but now I don't even have to think about it anymore.
It's here in the high desert.
Here in the high, I think it's a
bunkered in the high desert.
So let's talk about this for just a minute. Like anyone's going to care, but I do. One of my favorite, I'm a radio guy. Like I do the radio show, but I've loved radio since I was just a little kid. Like I would just glued to the radio. In fact, I remember, I don't even know which class it was in, but I remember I was in junior high. I don't remember the specific class, but my teacher, it must have been like a lit teacher. So I don't remember. I'm trying to figure out the class that this went with, but I was introduced to the War of the Worlds. Okay, and that radio program that guy did, right? Yeah, and it fascinated me because it was actually, a true story, even though it wasn't a true story, but the whole thing goes is they did this on the radio, but people, they were just, the time they did this, people were just stuck to their radio, and they actually thought these aliens were like invading. Because what is radio? Radio is what we call theater of the mind. Yeah. That's all radio is. Radio is pretty freaking powerful, really. Oh, yeah. And it has fascinated me since I was just a little kid. And, when I first got married, I actually did on the local radio station, not the talk radio that I do now, but I guess they called them DJs still. They don't really call them DJs. They call them like on-air personality. I was
DJ Todd.
Yeah, I was an on-air personality. I had my own radio show and everything. It aired, it was always on Sunday mornings, and then it was on Saturdays as well. Sometimes I filled in for a guy, but I actually had my own like 4 or 5 hour radio show.
With music?
With music. Oh, okay. With music. Is it KCJ? It was country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man, I was DJ. I remember. That was fun. Yeah. I'm trying to think of some of the old lines I used to say. Because, you kind of get into like a groove, I guess. Yeah. And, let's see, 95.7 KZJ, that was Garth Brooke. And it wasn't one, it wasn't three, but that was 2 pina coladas. Do you see that? That's exactly. It was there, man. I had it. That's what I did. It was great. And I used to do, I do the weather. Remember, I do the weather, and it's, it's partly cloudy with a chance of rain, but don't worry. Tomorrow, folks, we're going to have some snow. You're going to wake up. It's going to be a winter wonderland outside. You're laughing at me, but that's how I did it. It was great, man. I loved radio. Nice. And then I had lots of overnight jobs. And when I first started at the radio station, one of my overnight jobs was just sitting in the radio station and changing satellites. So when I worked at the radio station, it wasn't like electronic music anymore. Uh-huh. It was literally, they had racks of CDs, and they looked like 8 tracks. They were called carts. So it was a mixture of CDs and carts. And then you'd have to go over, and there was actually like a little plastic wheel that you'd have to turn at a certain time to move the satellites to pick up different radio shows, right? So I had to stay up all night and do that. Wow. And I fell in love with AM radio. And I fell in love with, he passed away now, but the guy was an absolute legend, Art Bell. Mm. He was a legend. He had the #1 overnight radio talk show, in the country, right? And he was actually located in Pahrump, Nevada, right outside of Area 51. Oh. And he did all that stuff. He was just he's king. He was just a king. He really was. He was absolutely fantastic. And I don't know, you're probably not into that stuff like I was, but now they do like coast to coast. Yeah, yeah. So that was coast to coast. That was him.
Yeah, when I was first went to college, and
Yeah.
The alarm would come on.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that stuff was out there until the alarm went off on, like, I think I had to get up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I listening to? But it did become kind of addictive. This is
Coast to Coast
pretty cool.
AM. That guy had just an amazing voice, Coast to Coast AM. And here we are. We're taking another callers from west of the Rockies. I mean, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I loved it. And I grew up listening to, my dad actually had an old, I wish I still had it. I had a ton of them, like a record player and like a box of records. And
something about that needle when it first does the scratch and starts to play. Yeah.
And he had one of the records was nothing but Wolfman Jack stuff.
Oh, really?
And, Wolfman Jack, and you think of American Graffiti, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I loved that stuff. I'm fascinated by radio. And how did we even get? Oh, because we were talking about the intro, and I just came up with that intro. And the high desert reminds me of like an Art Bell thing.
Yeah, was that? Did you pre-write that the first time, or was it about to start?
I just kind of went with it, and then I kind of fine-tuned it for a couple months, and now here we are. I think it's great. I love it. I think it's fantastic. So,
bunker down.
That's one of my my prouder moments.
Yeah. When I first listened to your podcast, that did
the intro catch you?
Yeah.
Were you like,
because it has that mystique to it too.
Yeah, I know.
Even though I know, I was like, he's around here, right? Where is Todd?
Yeah. I like it. Then it had
high desert. Oh yeah, we are in the high desert. That's super cool.
You don't think about that though.
Yeah.
This is great. I love it. I freaking love it. I got the right effect. I'm in, man. But so we had a long. It was a cold afternoon yesterday.
Yeah, especially where the shooting took place.
Yeah. So I had a permit class yesterday, and it was a first permit class of the year, and it was a big permit class, way bigger than I thought it would be in January. I actually had 30 people signed up for it, and I had I think it was 28 people. 28 people showed. Fantastic day. And they were all here. They were all eager to learn. And I'll tell you what, the weather wasn't that nice. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't that nice.
Well, I swear, I thought the weather was good, but when we get on the range, I think your tree's branch literally moved to block the sun.
There is
out of spite for some reason.
Because of the however all this works, right? And where the sun is located in the wintertime, like during the summertime, like that is roasty toasty down there in the range. Like the sun is high, everything's lit up, and you're wishing it would go behind the freaking tree because it's like 189 down there. But in the wintertime, the sun doesn't get past that tree. And there's a good portion of that range that does not get the sun in the wintertime.
It was probably at least 5 degrees colder in that spot then.
Well, and then you're shooting, but then you're just like standing there.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, everyone hung in there and everyone did good, and we had a great time. But there was the saving grace was there was no wind.
Yeah.
And I was pretty impressed with I always say this. I'm always impressed with my students, but I was really impressed. We had some pretty good shooters.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a good time, and I always look in the winter. I look at gun malfunctions. What are we going to have in the way of gun malfunctions? Who didn't clean their gun, or who hasn't? That kind of stuff, right? That the oil is going to be bad and thicken up and make it so the gun. I don't know that we had any of those. At least not on my end.
No, just some new guns that people were getting used to.
We had. I think people get tired. At about 50 rounds, they were getting cold and they started limp wristing.
Yeah, and here's the thing with that, right? With those who might not consider taking the class right now, right? It's, hey, do you know the circumstances? Are you going to control the circumstances when you need to actually utilize your firearm?
Yeah.
Is it only going to be 70 degrees with a light breeze and, the perfect silhouette of the bad guy?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it might be, 10 degrees outside.
What does James always say? If it ain't raining, we ain't training.
Yeah,
that's what he says.
Yeah.
And I say, and I will tell you right now, I've done a class in the rain, like a permit class in the rain, a big permit class in the rain. That was miserable. I will say that. Yesterday was great compared to, we had boxes of like half empty boxes. Like it was raining so much.
Oh yeah.
The boxes were floating along the table. Like it was a horrible. It was, and it doesn't rain like that here, but that day it just poured down rain.
Oh yeah,
it was so freaking wet. It was so wet.
And that's what. Yeah, I know. Coming from Northern California, I hate when it rains here because the snow is different for me, and I enjoy it.
Yeah,
the wet is just like, no, please go away. It's annoying.
But it was overall it was a good day. I know there was I always like to highlight or talk about a few students that maybe stood out, and I forget her name, but kudos to that. I think she was in your group. Kudos to the woman who was shooting what was she shooting? That little Taurus. And she had MS, I think.
Oh,
right?
yes.
And she fought hard all day long, and that gun was getting so hard for her to rack.
Yeah.
And loading was, but man, she with a little bit of help from us, and then she had, I think, a cousin was taking the class as well. Yes. And they didn't know that they were both going to be here, by the way.
No way.
Yeah, they just showed up and, whoa, hey, cousin.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So he told me, he's like, I'll help her a little bit. I said, okay, that's fine. But man, she hung in there, and she was she was done at the end. I'm done. Right, but she hung in there. She did really good.
And that adds a new light. So she came by herself. Wow, she took that initiative and was out here just.
Yeah, in fact, she talked to me, and I think she's going to come back, and I sold extra certificates at the class yesterday, so I'm not sure if she bought one or I think she might have, and I think she said she's going to come back. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I did see her eyeing up the women's shooting academy. I saw her taking a picture of it. So I don't know. I still have a week left. I might get some people to sign up for that.
Yeah. When does that start again?
That starts that starts first week of February.
Okay.
So it's coming. I get 2 months off. And then starting in February through November, like every Thursday night is busy.
Yeah.
And now 2 Wednesday nights a month are going to be busy, and every Thursday night is going to be busy from starting in February through November.
Nice.
Because I've got 3 groups. So I graduated to 3 groups.
Okay.
I've got the women's advanced, the women's beginners, and I think it was a couple years ago I did a men's class, right? Mm-hmm. And I only had one guy sign up for it. And he's gonna, if you listen to the podcast, he's awesome. His name is Burke, and he drove it down here all the way from Burley. And we it was super customized for him because he was just like the only one in the class. And so he'd come and we'd shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. Well, I think one night it's like, I'm going to shoot too, Burke. He's like, I don't care, just shoot. so that's what we did. And I don't think I did it last year. I didn't do it last year. And then, so this year I went ahead and threw it out there again. Let's try this again. I've got like 6 or 7 men signed up for it.
Nice.
Yeah. So, that one took a little while to gain a little traction. And by the way, Burke, if you're listening, you said you were going to sign up for it again. In fact, he messaged me and he goes, so do you want to sign up for the men's class yet? I said, why, Burke? Why are you asking me this? And he goes, well, because if I sign up, I don't want you to have to do the class just for me. I'm like, no, others have signed up. Okay, I'll get signed up. Burke, you have a week, sir. You have a week. I'm waiting. You have a week. So, but no, it should be good. It really should be good. I really look forward to the groups and getting them started. It's really cool to take someone from beginning to end. Yeah. Even if they already know some stuff, right? You get to start with them and you get to see them. Yeah, that build up. You get to see them progress. So during yesterday's class, I was on my end of the line. You get the middle, and then like James gets the end. And I couldn't see down. I didn't know what was going on down there. So is there anything else that stood out to you? Is there anything you think on, I should have had James come in and do this too. Was there anything on James's end that you saw? Anyone stand out to you or anything stand out to you? There was a guy, who had a really good grouping. Just all the way through. You joked about like, hey, because, you don't have the target. It's the blank sheet of paper. Right? Yeah. And it's, he made his own hole. Yeah. You said put a hole in the middle and that's your bullseye the rest of the class. That's what he did. He literally did that. By the end, it was just a larger hole. Nice. So that was really impressive that he did that. So I like to ask you this because you've done firearms and stuff before, but you've just recently started helping me, and so I think this is your, outside of doing this in like the military, like law enforcement, stuff. You're with civilians. You're the everyday folks. I don't even like to call them civilians. You're with the everyday folks now. Yeah. So it's obviously a little different. So you've done a few classes with me now. Has anything different stood out to you yet? I mean, anything like you have to approach stuff different, obviously. Can't yell at anyone. Yeah, I can't yell at anyone. Obviously, like with,
the whole point is building up that confidence and understanding that this is like a thing. Like you say, you like to watch people build.
Yeah.
In my experience, it was more like, no, there's going to be a test, and if you fail, there's consequences. You're either out of the academy or you got to, so yeah, that part's a little different in that, like, right, I don't have to put that pressure, like, you better get this right or else you fail and
you're out of the academy.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of, do you know who Ray Stevens is?
No.
Oh my God, you don't? Okay, well, we won't go there.
Or I might not.
He was a guy that he was a singer. He wrote like funny songs. And you're like, and you're out of the academy. He wrote a song called the Shriners Convention. And he's like, hey, Fez, you're out of the Hellhira delegation. I'm sorry. It's something I thought of when you said that immediately. No one else is. I tell you what, if you get that reference, then you need to text me. You need to tell me because I need to know if it's just me that gets that or if someone else knows exactly what I'm talking about.
You and Ray Stevens.
Ray Stevens, Shriners Convention. Check out the song. It's stupid, but I love it. It's free. I grew up on it. It's great. So yeah, no, it was a good class, and we have a lot of people coming back for some more classes because I offered a deal. Actually started it last month, but we'll say it started yesterday. Where if you take a permit class from me, then you get the option of purchasing a half price, 50% off a private class from me because I do want to encourage people to go out and continue to shoot. And we had quite a few people take us up on the offer, and I think that's fantastic. Yeah. And I look forward to having them get a hold of me and setting up a class and continue with their training because as I tried to tell everyone yesterday, the permit classes are good, and I've said it on here before. Permit classes are great, but that is a teaching class. That is not a training class. That is a teaching class. We're teaching you the laws. We're teaching you the safety. We're teaching you the basic fundamentals. You're going to learn them. You're going to know what they are. You're going to shoot with them a little bit, but it's not a training class. Like we're not just sitting there focusing on shooting and all this stuff. You need to take a training class. Yeah, that's an intro class. That's what that is. Yeah,
and then for those self defense minded people out there, right? Just think like anything goes down with you needing to use your firearm, that person who you're going to have to use against likely has some training if it is by themselves, whatever. They're being familiar with the firearms they're about to try to come at you with or attack your family with, right? Yeah. So, simply taking, say, a permit class, that's not what they're doing. They got their firearms, they got their stuff. They're going over it in their head. They're doing their training if it's by themselves. They're repeating it to where, if you're thinking, one class does a trick, understand who your possible attacker might be, right?
Well, yeah, and if it kind of sounds funny to say this, right? But an attacker, a bad guy, someone who's going to mug you, take your money, break into your house, or rape you. These things, we call them serial offenders. Yeah. Why is that? Because they do it all the time. Yeah. And they're probably damn good at it. Yeah. Honestly, and so you need to stay prepared. I don't have the saying right in front of me, but I've read it numerous times, and I usually relate it to like running or something like that because that's just another thing that I do. But there's somewhere out there, there's bad guys, right? There's someone training to do you harm. They're training to kill you. They're training to do your family harm, and you need to do your part as well. Yeah, because you need to be ready for that. Yeah, because they're looking. I say he. It's not just basically a guy thing, but those people are looking to do you harm. They are. That's what they want to do, and you need to be prepared for that, right? Yeah, just absolutely. Like you're prepared to pay your taxes. The two libertarians in the room look at each other and laugh.
I can't. You say taxes, I can't help but laugh.
Yeah, exactly. So during class, I received a phone call, and it's very interesting. And I'm not picking anyone because I don't know this person that called me. They called me and they left me a message. They were looking for a class, a permit class. That's what they asked for. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, hey, I texted them real quick. Said, I'll call you back when I get done with class later on this evening. So I've got this before, but sure enough, I get this response. Oh, never mind. I've just been told that you don't have to have a permit to carry concealed in Idaho. And that is true. Mm-hmm. That is true. You do not. But guess what? You still need to know the laws. Yeah. You still need to know where you can and can't carry a gun. You still need to know how to do it safely. You need to know the ins and outs. You need to know the Idaho Lethal Force Law. Those are all very, very, very important things. And as I pointed that out very nicely, I read you the text messages very nicely.
Yeah.
You're right. You're correct. But if you ever do want to take a class, it pays to know the laws. Let me know. I'll help you out any way that I can.
Yeah.
Oh, well, how much is your class? And I told this person, I said, well, it's an 8-hour class. It's required by the state. I said, it's $95 per 8 hours. Holy cow, I don't have that kind of time. Well, then you don't have time to carry a freaking gun.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, you legally you can, but if you don't have time to if you don't have the time needed to put in there and be responsible with it, and it's not just about following the law, right? If you carry a gun, you need to get trained with it so you don't do yourself harm, you don't do others harm, you don't make stupid decisions that are going to put you in prison, put you in jail. You need to learn safety, all that. You have that responsibility. You owe that to yourself, your family members, and those around you where you might possibly have to use your firearm. Yeah. Because it just, I saw things in my class yesterday, and it's just people were here learning, and I like to think I put some people on the right track. Hopefully, when you don't know things, what do? Well, it's time to shoot, so you just take your gun out of your purse, and it's just like floating around in there with your checkbook and everything else, right? I saw that yesterday, and I saw a gentleman, and I've seen this a lot, and like I said, I'm not picking on them. I'm not trying to make an example out of them either, because I discussed it with him and pointed out things, right? He had 2 different guns. He had a small one and a larger one. And he had those clips attached to him. Have you seen those clips? They're attached to the slide, so you don't have to use a holster. You load it, you put in the magazine, you rack the slide chamber around. Oh, wow. And then you just like tuck it in your waistband, and the clip goes over your belt that's attached to the gun.
Nice.
So nothing is protecting what? The trigger.
Yeah.
Right?
Ooh,
yeah. So I said, hey, look, this is totally up to you. Like, what you're doing is not against the law, but let me tell you why you shouldn't do that. Yeah. Why that makes me cringe, right? And you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And so there's reasons why education and being responsible is a good thing. And I just shake my head when someone wants to carry around this firearm with them, this tool that could save their lives, that could protect their lives, yet they refuse to give up a little bit of time to be responsible and take a class and learn about stuff. And we talked about it a little while ago. You don't have to get the freaking permit. Yeah. But the permit class is a good thing. Yeah. But absolutely. You don't have to apply for the permit. If you're totally against having your name on a list somewhere, and you do you, I can guarantee you your name's already on a list somewhere. It doesn't matter. You don't have to get the permit, but man, it pays to know the laws. It pays to know all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if there was somehow a state that said, like, right, you don't have to have a driver's license to drive on the road, would you not still want to take some driver's training?
Yeah,
It would still help you nonetheless. Like, that doesn't mean you have to go sign up for a needless license, but you should probably at least still want to have the knowledge to utilize what it is you're going to be utilizing, or to know, in the case of the permit, right? Know what laws are for you and against you, so that when you do use it, you have the utmost confidence on the aftermath that you'll have to deal with.
So I know you, your kids aren't old enough yet, but I've had plenty that have just went out and got their driver's license for the first time. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they hit that legal age that they say that they can drive, I can't imagine tossing my son the keys and saying, you can drive now. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. That would be a nightmare, right? And I don't care if you're like, well, I could drive back. I could drive before I had my... Yeah, but you know what? Someone taught you how to drive. Yeah. Somebody taught you how to drive, right? They set you down and said, this is how you start it. If it was a stick, this is how you shift gears. This is where the blinkers are. Okay, more clutch, less gas, more gas, less clutch. This is when you shift. When you come to a 4-way stop, this is what you need to do. Someone taught you and went through all that. They didn't just toss you the keys and say, go figure it out and kill someone in the process. Yeah. Right.
And, I mean, even if you think, the stop sign is
suggestion.
Suggestion unconstitutional, right? Like, you still probably wouldn't hurt to take a class to know that that's what that is, right? To know, like, okay, this is why, the lights come flashing behind you. Even if you do decide to run it still.
You need to know. You need to be able to make that choice.
Yeah. At least have the knowledge base. And even if you want to say, screw it.
That's right. That's right. So, search out a class, search out some education. It's all key. And as much as I am totally against anyone requiring anything of me, which I am. Yeah. I mean, I'm against the government. I'm against the federal, the state government telling me you need to go do that. This is what's required for you. Education doesn't hurt you. Yeah. I mean, you do need education on certain things, especially when it comes to, possibly taking a life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I look at it. So, what about that? What about that shooting in California? Did you hear about that? It was at that dance academy, right?
Yeah. I heard about that.
And so, our Magnum, he's been on the podcast a time or two, and you guys are probably used to hearing this. He called me up this morning. Goes, man, did you hear about that? So a guy, I kind of heard what Magnum told me, and I didn't go read a bunch of articles on it yet because it's fairly new yet. Let's get some information out. Last I heard, what had happened, they're having a big lunar.
Lunar, the Chinese New Year. Basically.
Chinese New Year. It was in California. It was outside of or near a dance studio or something.
Yeah, it was basically a largely populated Asian community.
Yes.
And the location it was Asian hangout, basically, kind of dance hall.
Gotcha. And so, guy shows up, and he was Asian, right?
That's what they're saying.
Saying the shooter was Asian. They're saying he had an AR-15. Do we know that?
I don't see what weapons they said.
We'll say I don't know that for sure yet. But he showed up and he shot 20 people, killed 10, injured 10. That's the last numbers that I have heard.
Same.
And that is all I know of that right now. But I do find it interesting if you want to go down the conspiracy theory route, right? I do find it interesting, though, that this happened, just like a lot of other shootings have happened, typically about 5 to 7 days after our president comes out and says, we're going to take your guns. Nobody needs an AR-15. Nobody needs 30 bullets in a magazine or whatever he said at his MLK speech the other day.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting how this stuff happens right after all this.
Yeah. And like we were talking earlier, so I still somewhat follow my old department, right? And I know within that area, there's been a shooting, I think, I want to say at least once a week in which multiple victims have passed away in the past few months, if not almost the whole past year, right? And so it's interesting that, so there's the aspect of them kind of setting stuff up, but then there's the aspect of what's a mass shooting? Because, there was one specific in my old community where I think 4 this past week or something were shot. And it's that didn't make the headline as far as mass shooting. The amount of people in Chicago who died this weekend is, I'm pretty sure, I'd be willing to bet, was more than this shooting, right? But it's conveniently called a mass shooting when the time frame matches up and when they can use that for the political leverage type things. But what is really, if 30 people are dying in Chicago, every weekend, right?
Right.
Yeah. What is this definition? They've been doing that a lot, redefining what's what. It's what changes something from a gang shooting in which those happen quite often and multiple victims to now, this time lines up. Let's call this one a mass shooting.
I took the liberty of looking up the definition of a mass shooting.
All right.
Would you like me to read it to you?
Yeah. Before the definition changes.
It's going to change. It'll change. Yes. It says, in the United States, there are several different but common definitions of mass shootings. The Congressional Research Service, that sounds official, doesn't it?
Congressional, it's honest.
Yeah, Congressional Research Service defines mass shootings as multiple firearm homicide events involving 4 or more victims at one or more locations close to one another. The FBI definition is essentially the same.
So Chicago is just an ongoing mass shooting.
Yeah, Chicago is just an ongoing mass shooting.
Washington, D.C., basically all the
but
blue cities are all just ongoing mass shootings.
Yeah, and you don't hear anything about
one or
those.
more locations, close proximity. Sounds like Chicago is the biggest mass shooting of all time.
Yeah. That's a quality. That's quality place up there. So it's just super interesting. So what I think we'll do, I think what the thoughts are, is I might gather more. Obviously, I'll gather more information as the week goes on. We'll get more information on this. I know this is very vague. I had some other stuff going on today. I can't just sit there on the internet and like read stuff all day. I do have a 9-year-old I need to feed. So I think the goal is that we're going to do another podcast. We're going to try to get back midweek. I know I missed last week's because I actually had a class, and classes are always going to come first over the podcast. They pay the bills. The podcast does not. The podcast costs. The classes are paying for the bills that the podcast gives to me. Okay. It keeps the podcast running. But I think we're going to try to do another one on Wednesday, so midweek, and hopefully we can have a lot more information and some more news has kind of come up, and we can delve into this maybe a little bit more, right?
See what's illegal by then.
Well, yeah, we'll see what's illegal. We'll see, and maybe it has disappeared by then.
Yeah, especially based off that whole ethnic thing.
What
was it? What was the one? Colorado. Where was that? Somewhere in Colorado where the guy turned out not to fit the description they like giving to.
Was that at the gay club?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. And so it just disappears. So but never mind.
Yeah, you don't hear about that anymore, do you? Yeah.
This guy was what? Oh.
Yeah.
Not a mass shooting. Let's change that definition.
Let's go ahead and look at the the classified documents found by the Corvette in the garage. Let's check that out for a little while. Somebody plant those so we can get that all figured out. But I don't know. It's just interesting. So we were talking about Chicago, and there's that new bill up in Illinois, right, where they wanted to outlaw all kinds of stuff, AR-15s, everything, and I think. I mentioned it. Well, I mentioned it before. You can check out the bill and look it up. And the governor is saying, yeah, this is what it is, and we are going to. The sheriff started standing up, and they started saying, like, we're not gonna do this. This is unconstitutional. We're not gonna back this up. We're not gonna enforce this. We're not gonna do anything. And the governor came out and said, well, then we're gonna get rid of you. We'll get rid of you. But what it's boiled down to, and we don't know what exactly is going to happen over there, but last I saw, someone showed the state, and there was all the counties, like 3 counties, all the counties except for 3 of them said they weren't going to enforce it.
Nice.
So it's interesting, and as we talk about this, I always say, I think that's good when they say that. I honestly do. I think that's a good thing. But I think it's really easy for them to say that.
Harder to do.
Harder to do, because when the rubber meets the road, you're going to figure out who's actually going to stand. Are they willing to lose their jobs? Are they willing to act upon this? Because and I'm not trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but honestly, if it gets real bad, they have to feed their families too, right?
Yeah.
And they are elected officials. And I got an audio clip that I want to play, and then we can I know you got some serious thoughts on this. So everything that we like pregame before the podcast, right after this audio, you just let it out. Let it out. We got to hear it. Right. Okay, here we go.
Hey, here's a question for you. If the police would never enforce gun laws, or if they would never disarm Americans, or, whatever goalpost you want to shift to, if they would never do this, then why are gun laws a big deal? Why is it important when Congress or a state legislature pushes through an assault weapons ban, or magazine capacity limitations, or any of this? If the police are all really good Second Amendment supporters and like total conservatives, then why do these laws matter? If the gun control dreams of Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein and Joe Biden and whoever are just wishes on paper and nobody's going to enforce them, then why are they such a big deal? Yeah, they're a big deal because the police will enforce these laws. Even in your town, where they're all like super cool and they're all big Second Amendment guys, yeah. Even in your town, they will do this. Okay. Illinois sheriffs are giving me a little bit of hope, but we will fucking see, because the sheriffs are politicians, and as such, they tend to be big on talk, not too big on action. So just remember that. Like, you personally, if you're one of these people who try to deny that the cops will absolutely go along with disarming Americans, remember that you personally know that is false. And that's why you think gun laws are a big deal. And that's why we get real antsy when gun laws are being passed.
I probably should have. I know we used a little language on here, so I probably should have put a little language warning on that. But it wasn't horrible, and we're all adults here, I would hope. So,
we just lost our 13-year-old listeners.
Yeah, he hears worse at school, trust me. My wife works at a school, and she's like, oh yeah, anything that our kids could like watch on TV, it's like 4 times that bad in school, honestly. But this guy makes a really good point, and I hear it all the time. And there's people, and I'm not saying don't love law enforcement, right? Because we all know, I know a lot of people in law enforcement, and I think there's truly some good people in there, right? But it's the problem is that we've been trained and almost brainwashed, I think, to a certain extent, that to think that these are local guys, right? These are hometown boys, a lot of them, they grew up here, they know this, they've been here forever, they went to this school and, whatever. And honestly, I think we are lying to ourselves if we say that if it came down to it, that they wouldn't show up and take our guns, because they would. And I think that they've set it up that way because if you know someone, it's easier for them to get the guns from you. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think people should ask themselves how many law enforcement do they know that would do the job for free. I could tell you, being in law enforcement, and military law enforcement, especially more recently, I never came across a cop who would do it for free. So that tells you as far as what they would look to enforce, right? They're getting paid, right?
Right.
And they're doing it. And that's not to say that's an awful thing. People need to make a living, right?
Sure.
Take care of their families. But there's not a law enforcement officer who would do it for free, which means they would not be willing to lose their job to protect your rights, basically. Because they're doing it for the paycheck. Like I said, that's not saying like, oh, you're awful because you're paid. But their priority is making ends meet for
on their
family.
Yeah.
Right. Not doing this job for free. I guarantee they say, hey, you're not getting paid this week, there would be no one pulling over vehicles.
Yeah.
It would be that simple.
They're not just doing it because they absolutely love to do it.
No, yeah. There's a lot of risk involved in all those things. So if they say you're not getting paid unless you go and do this law and take people's firearms, and also it comes down to a lot of being in law enforcement, right? You feel like you're safe, right? So like I can legally, especially in California, it was like there's a bunch of stuff I could legally own as a law enforcement officer that technically I was supposed to enforce the laws that took away those same things from the public, right? So if they come down with a law that says basically like, hey, law enforcement, you're exempt from this. You keep your ARs, you keep all your firearms, you can keep everything, but you do need to, in order to do that, you have to go take away other people's. And like I said, it comes down to getting paid, maintaining your job. Yeah, they're going to feel special. Australia was an example. I think our friend Tarver on his podcast mentioned it with Australia, right?
Which is up. I checked. He had a new episode of Forgotten American. Came up yesterday. Go check it out.
Yeah, and I was listening to that this morning, and I think he brought up Australia, in which basically, there was law enforcement getting pushed back to some of the mandates and stuff back in 2020
for the vaccines. Yeah,
the jab. And then as soon as they got, hey, you guys are going to be exempt. What did you see in Australia? Bunch of cops breaking skulls for not wearing your mask right, being in the wrong place, traveling too far.
Because they knew it wasn't going to affect them.
Yeah, it was suddenly, I get paid and I don't have to participate. So yeah, a lot of law enforcement. If you say, like I said, that's most of basically all of California, right? Like I said, we were exempt from a lot of the gun laws, right, that we had to enforce. We still go in, take people's guns and stuff like that because it was like, hey, you want to go shooting this weekend with our AR? Yeah, we can. Cool. Yeah, and that was the end of the story. We weren't thinking, each shift like, hey, we get to have this. They don't. I feel bad. I'm not enforcing that.
Well, that's not the mentality they bred into you either.
Yeah, no, yeah. You're getting,
they didn't foster that kind of attitude.
Yeah. One of your partners is going to send you right to IA if you said something like that.
Well, and I want to point this out there too, and it's as judgmental as I might be I want to say judgmental as much as I I double take when it comes to law enforcement, right? I'm always real careful. I like ask a lot of questions. I'm not saying that the guys that are in law enforcement are all bad guys by any means. They're there. They're doing a job. They're trying to put food on the table for their families. I get it, right? I get it. And that's what you have to look at because they want to feed their families. And if they're told to do something, they're going to probably do it. Now, there may be a handful that say, nope, not doing it. Yeah. And guess what? They're out of a job. But no worries, because that didn't really help anything. They're not having to do it, but they'll fill that position really quick with someone who will do it twice as hard and work twice the overtime to go out and collect your guns or do whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and they dangle treats out there, right? So as you see, like a lot of law enforcement agencies are having problems, filling a lot of positions.
Oh, big time.
So what do? Especially with a lot of the federal money? They're giving them more toys. So it could be less cops with bigger, better toys, and those guys are going to, that makes up for that, right? If you got, instead of 20 officers, you got 5 who get, a tank and shields and stuff like that. Those 5 are going to be the gung-ho ones.
Like, we're the shit.
Yeah, we don't need 20 now. Like, I'm so happy to have all these toys. And when it comes to treatment of law enforcement, right, it's not about don't hate law enforcement, but treat them just like you would anyone else. And with that, right, in any relationship, right, it's not a...
Question everything.
Yeah, always. If you're going to call out your, fellow community member, right, call out your fellow cop too. He is a community member. So just like anyone else, don't blindly trust anyone, including law enforcement. So don't blindly hate anyone, but don't blindly trust anyone, right? If you're in a relationships with people, friends or whatever, right? It's not an open ticket to be like, oh yeah, I like that guy. So therefore, no matter what he does, he's cool. But that's what people are doing with law enforcement. Hey, yeah, I respect this. He has a badge. So therefore, no matter what, I back the blue.
We've talked about this plenty before, but they're trained to idolize him. Yeah. They're trained to hold him up on this pedal. And we've been trained to do this for a long time. But I mean, it's really, at least I've noticed it really probably over to even the last, let's say 10 years. And we're talking all first responders. We're talking law enforcement. We're talking firefighters. We're talking hospital employees, EMTs, medics. We're talking military. We're talking everybody, right? We're taught to idolize them. And why? And in my mind, why is that? Because when they come and when they're forced to do something that may be unconstitutional, it's easier to get them done. If you've held them up your entire life up on this pedestal of they're heroes, they really aren't going to do anything wrong. You want the gun? Yeah, I'll give you my. I know you. You're good. Yeah. I'll give you my guns. You're asking me. I don't hate you. But, if Biden showed up at your door or Nancy Pelosi and they say, give me your guns, you're going to say, screw you. But you bring Gary, the guy that you grew up with, the guy that is law enforcement, and he knocks on your door and says, hey, man, I got to take your firearms. You saw. And you're more likely to say, okay, and not shoot him. Yeah. I mean, really. Yeah. I mean, that's the way they look at it. That's the way it's going to go down if it goes down at all.
Yeah, it's a job, and like I said, it's just like any other job. Most of your law enforcement either had some prior job, or if they didn't, then that's always troubling to me because it's like if your first job is getting paid to tell people what to do. Yeah. But either way, right? That means they're average people. So it's no different. Like the people I worked with, going through the academy, it's guys who worked at Walgreens, waitresses, waiters, all that stuff, right? They're just human beings. Yeah, we went through an academy and got a badge. He's still that guy from Walgreens who went to high school. He looked for a job that paid better, had better benefits. And yes, it's a respectful living, but he didn't change from the guy helping you in the Walgreens aisle simply by going to...
He's that guy you smoked dope with out by the dumpster during high school. I'm sorry.
It is. It's like nothing changes. Like I said, treat them like you would anyone else, which means don't blindly hate. But don't blindly serve. Like,
don't follow.
Yeah, they're just people. Yeah, so they pull you over. No, you're not gonna go. You're the enemy and look to shoot. But also, don't sit there and go like, "Oh, officer, I'm absolutely wrong simply because you pulled me over."
Well, too many people we're trained not to question.
Yeah,
and too many people don't question. They have this unwavering faith in things. I was told it was fine. I was told you were great. I was told it was good, and that's what I'm going to believe. I'm not going to think for myself because the government doesn't want you to think for yourself. In fact, what I say is question ever, and this is the program that I live by, right? Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you don't agree with it, but mine is question everything.
Yeah.
You should question, if you believe in God, you should question the existence of God himself to prove to yourself that there is a God. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
You should question absolutely everything.
C.S. Lewis has a quote, the ultimate risk tests only an ultimate risk tests your belief.
Yeah.
Like if you're not risking, and you're staying in your little nice bubble, then you don't really know. So yeah, with law enforcement, right? If you're not challenging it, then and to speak to that too, like when I was in law enforcement, right? All this stuff, the longer I'm out, the more I think about the stuff I participated in that I think differently on, and that like I remember we would talk as if those people who challenged us, not because they were wrong or they were looking to hurt us, but they were wrong for challenging us. I pull you over, I walk up to you, where's your ID? You give me a hard time about the Constitution and stuff. We amongst each other, we like those guys are annoying. They come into the courthouse.
They're questioning us.
I forgot the one group specifically we were dealing with, but it was like they didn't do anything wrong, but it was they're questioning us, and we were taught to like disdain them for doing so.
Yeah.
And then hindsight, I'm looking like they didn't do anything wrong. They just said like, is this constitutional? And made us have to think. And as a cop, we were trained to think, you're making me think you're a bad guy.
That is interesting because not only are we taught to idolize and hero worship and stuff, law enforcement, but you guys, sounds like you guys were taught that, hey, hero worship me. I am above you. I am more elite than you. And when you question me, that is a problem. It's not that you're questioning a law that might not be good. It's the fact that you're disagreeing with me, and no one disagrees with me. And I hear it a lot of times too, is if you're going to disagree, the side of the road's not the place to do it. And I take that to a certain extent, but I understand that, but it's like, well, I can't disagree at all then.
Also, the side of the road ain't the opportunity for you to
make me disagree.
To make me have to challenge you to,
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I think it's, I think that the audio clip I played, I think the guy made a very, very, very good point. And people, I think, really need to sit down and look. And I'm not saying go out and be horrible to law enforcement by any means. No. They're just doing a job. They are just like you and me. And they may be the guy that you went to school with or the hometown boy. I get it. But they're there to do a job, and a good portion of them are going to do what they're told to do.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to that. Like, how many of them would do the job for free?
Yeah.
If it was just defending, if it's about your safety in the community, just ask yourself how many cops that you know would do it for free. My thoughts, based off of my experience, would be zero. Yeah. If you said, hey, you're risking your life and all that just for free to protect people's rights, and I can tell you, it didn't come up. And again, that's one of those things in hindsight I'm looking at. I'm like, we never discussed just defending people's rights. Never. In law enforcement was it about defending people's rights. It was about, finding drugs and finding, quote, the bad guy and stuff. But the idea of like, hey, let's question, hey, this new policy, this new memo that came out, let us all chit chat about whether or not we should have the authority to enforce it, never came up. It was, this is a new policy. This is a memo. This is a new law that was literally just passed that says now pedophiles get out in 6 months. Whatever.
And go out and make sure, it's done.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it, give them a ticket and we'll go to court.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Just do it. And it was like, hey, I'm getting, what was it? 3% raise this year? All right, whatever.
Yeah, I'll do whatever. I'll do whatever you tell me to.
Yeah, there were so many of us like, this law's stupid. California, this is stupid. And then it was like, 3% raise, whatever.
So that give you something to think about for the week, folks. That's what we do here, is we like to try and make you think outside the box a little bit, think about what's going on. I do want to go ahead and bring this podcast to a close, and I'm looking at my list here because I have a list about every time we do this.
Yeah,
don't I?
Yeah,
yes.
You do.
I mean, I may scratch it down like 4 minutes before I hit record, but I do have a list, and I want to talk about the podcast schedule we got coming up. Okay. So I'm trying to get a little more organized doing this, and I think I've done good over the last 2 or 3 months. I will say that a scheduled class, I will always schedule a class over a podcast. I will, because this is making me money. I will try not to, but if I don't have a choice, that's what's going to happen. So if we miss one, we miss one. Bathroom Paul, I am talking to you. And I got that text message saying, "Where's my midweek podcast?" Yeah. Well, they're coming back. Don't worry. It's coming back. So what I'd like to do is, I believe I'm officially not in trouble on Facebook anymore. So I think I can actually do live videos again. And I will say that the last couple of weeks, I'm a member of some Facebook pages where they just post memes and offensive memes and all kinds of stuff. And I have got a whole bunch of really good ones. And I have not posted them because I'm afraid I'm going to get punished. So I'm doing it for Patriot Defense. I'm doing it for the podcast. Nice. I'm not posting those so I don't get banned from posting live videos anymore.
Well, are you saying that Zuckerberg got that $20 MoneyGram you sent him?
Probably, yeah. So what I think we're going to start doing here is, I think next week, if everything goes well, I think we're going to try to go back live. I think we're going to try to stream the weekend podcast. So the weekend podcast, the ones on Sundays, I try to do the Sundays typically. I am going to try to start doing them live again. Hopefully they will stream live on YouTube. So if you don't know the YouTube channel, go find it. It's under Patriot Defense. You'll see there's a bunch of podcast videos up there. We'll stream live to YouTube and Facebook if I can figure all this out right. I don't know that the quality is going to be 100%, but I'll work on it and do my best. But we're going to, both those, Facebook and YouTube, we're going to stream live. And you can interact via just commenting, listening and commenting while we do it live, and we can interact with you. I'll get a computer set up over here for Eli, and I don't know, him or me, I don't know, one of us will interact with the comments, right? We'll answer the comments. So that's going to be the goal. That's kind of what I'm working toward. And then I will still do the midweek podcast. That will not be live. That's just going to be an audio version. And the weekend podcast that we stream live, that'll be an audio version as well. But if you wanted to watch it live while we are recording it, you sure can. And those get a little exciting sometimes because I can't edit anything out of those.
So before we do the live ones, did the check go through for those fitness models we got to substitute for
I'm hoping. I'm still waiting.
Are we able to dub our voice on
Yeah, I think maybe. Yeah, I think maybe. So yours is wearing a bikini, so that's going to be awesome with your voice in there. That's going to be sweet. But I would also like to try and do something else, and I think it's possible from what I can gather, because I know some other people that are doing it, but once a month on the live streaming podcast, I think there's a way I can open it up for live phone calls. And so if we do this, and when I do this, I will say when I do this, we will hype it up. You'll see it on Facebook. You'll see it on Instagram. You'll see it on social media. And I'll let everyone know that this is going to be a call-in show. And it's awesome because I'm able to be able to do a call-in show without actually being on the radio. It's kind of cool, right? It's kind of exciting. So I'll let you guys know more details about how that is going to work exactly. I want to get a few live shows under our belt, and then I'll try to play with that and see if I can get this thing working right. But I know a couple other guys that do some other podcasts that have been doing this. It's actually been really slick. They're fun to listen to because they don't know who's calling in, and they don't know what they're going to say. And we'll have people call in with questions or stories or something, right? We'll throw something out there and have you guys call in, and like I said, maybe it's story time. Maybe you're answering questions. I don't know, something. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
I think it'll be cool.
Yeah. Pitter patter.
Pitter patter. Let's get at her. That's right. If you Letterkenny fans in here, if you listen to the podcast, I do appreciate it. Share it on social media. If you want to check out Patreon, you can do that as well, because I am going to do a third podcast that is just going to be going on Patreon. And so if you want to hear more of me, which you should, you can join Patreon. It's like $5 a month. All the information is going to be down in the show notes. You can join the crew over there, and let's see if we can get Patreon a little bit more lively. That'd be fantastic. Get some more content, some more podcast type content in there. Until then, I will. Hang on. I almost forgot. If anyone knows that Ray Stevens song, right? If anyone knows that Ray Stevens song and recognizes what I was talking about there, during the podcast. You can give me a call. You can shoot me a text. Area code 620-794-6223. It's area code 620-794-6223. And we're out of here. And hopefully we'll see you guys midweek. You here, Eli?
I'll be here.
Okay. Bye.